Hello again. I'm hugely amused at the fuss about the singing of Rule Britannia at the last night of the Promenade concerts, which inevitably involves the BBC. There seem to be two chief objections to the song. The first is that it glorifies British imperialism, and the second is that it makes reference to slaves, which is thought to be a bit off in light of the Black Lives Matter movement. It's hard to explain the degree of ignorance involved here in terms of British history. The song Rule Britannia is represented by many liberal and progressive people as being a militaristic and imperialistic paean which glorifies the superiority of the British armed forces over those of other nations. Bellicose patriotism of this sort is really not the thing today. And what's all this about slaves? That's a bit tacky, surely. Context is everything. Throughout the 17th century, the seas around Britain were ruled not by Britannia, but by Muslim slavers from North Africa. They stopped British ships and carried off the crews to sell as slaves in Algiers and Tripoli. It got to the point where fishing boats in Devon and Cornwall wouldn't put out to sea in case they were captured by slave traders. Between 1609 and 1616, a total of 466 British ships were captured in the English Channel, Irish Sea and North Atlantic, and the crews were taken to be sold into slavery. In 1625, a raiding party landed at Mounts Bay in Cornwall. 60 people who had taken refuge in a church were dragged out, loaded onto ships and then taken off to Africa to be sold as slaves. That same year, on the 12th of August, the Mayor of Plymouth appealed to London for military help because 27 ships had been seized in 10 days. In 1645, 240 people were seized when slavers landed in Cornwall. In those days, Britannia definitely did not rule the waves, and Britons really were being made slaves. The situation began to change for the better after the end of the English Civil War, when the Royal Navy was built up under Oliver Cromwell. By 1700, slavers generally knew better than to bother the British Isles. They gave it a wide berth because of the Navy. It was a triumph that the British were no longer being carried off as slaves and were finally able to rule their own coastal waters. It was in commemoration of this improved state of affairs that James Thomson wrote Rule Britannia in 1740. The original line about slaves went, "Britons never will be slaves." The revitalised navy is now being strong enough to deter foreign slavers from seizing people from British villages and ships. It's a hymn of thanksgiving rather than a proclamation of aggressive nationalism.